This week, we're going to be learning all about tow hooks. We're going to be going through how they work, what we use them for, and some really useful ways of practicing them so that once you become familiar enough with them, they can be your secret weapon, like they are for me and for Ink. He loves tow hooks. So first off, let's talk about why we use tow hooks. What are they actually for? I think best way of imagining it, and this is what I do when I'm using tow hooks when I climb, imagine you've got a rope with a grappling hook on the end of it as a tool you can use for your climbing. How might we use that tool? I think there are two common ways. Let's go through the first one first. If I want to secure myself to a hold so that I can let go of it and do other things with my hands, that grappling hook can be really, really useful. So in this example on the yellow, I need to let go of that right hand hold in order to reach the next one. But without the tow hook, as soon as I let go of it, I'm going to go flying to the left with loads of momentum, and the next hold is not good enough for me to just catch it at that speed. So I need to use the tow hook behind that hold so I can let go slowly, reach out to the next handhold, and secure it precisely before I move into the next position. Likewise for this red climb, if I secure the left tow hook, I can move really slowly, get a good grip on that next hold, and then gently move into the next position. Worth noting that you can use heel hooks for exactly the same purpose. Is why we use heel hooks. I want to secure myself to a hold so I can reach away and do other things with my hands or my other foot. The direction that you're moving, either away from or across the point that you've secured, makes a massive difference though. If we have a look at this orange V7 that I'm trying, so you can see I can use the heel hook, like it fits at first, but as soon as I start leaning away, I just can't hold that position anymore. Here it is from a wider angle so you can see. Maybe if I was more flexible, but as soon as I use the tow hook, that fits the position, it fits the direction that I want to lean away. As I lean away, the tow hook gets better rather than worse. And again, from this other angle, you can see how neatly that tow hook works. If I want to go the other way though, now you can see the tow hook is the last thing I need. I can't move over that tow hook in that position, whereas the heel hook now fits what I want to do. Our second use for tow hooks is less common, but when it does come up, it's really good to know how you can use this tool for this purpose. The length of my arm span, for me personally, is actually very long, but it's not as long as the length of my arm plus my full body height, including my leg, going diagonally across. There are some holds that I can't reach with my big long arms, which I can reach if I stretch all the way out and extend my leg. I could get a tow hook behind it and then pull myself in on that grappling hook until I can reach it with my hand. Like I say, less common, but a really useful tool to have in your kit. Anytime we use a tow hook, whether it's for either of those purposes, the really important thing is that rope on the grappling hook needs to be tight. There needs to be opposition against the tow hook you're doing. Now, sometimes when we use tow hooks, it's just one of the options you could have on a climb you're doing. I feel like if the climb is getting hard enough and it's near the limit of your strength, a tow hook in the right place might be your only option to do the climb. So let's take a look at this V10 I was trying. On this one, the holds are really bad and they're facing the same direction. So at first, I'm trying to jump for this sloper. It's terrible. On the second go, I'm kind of close, but you can see that momentum just swings me right. If I was really strong, maybe it's possible to catch that position. But then the next move is even harder. I have to match the sloper, paddle down to this crimp. Again, I'm sure it's possible if I was even stronger, but I'm not strong enough for that option, so I need to find an option which gives me some opposition against those really terrible holds. So on my next go, I work out that maybe a tow hook is going to create the opposition that I need. It feels awkward to get it, and it doesn't work first time, but I could feel that that was going to be an option that works for me. And you can see on the second go, that tow hook now holds me perfectly against the direction I'm pulling on that sloper. It lets me match it. I was about to do the release, and then I realized I could do a second tow hook to move my foot into position. And now I've got all the way into that far crimp without having to do any crazy wild swings, which I wasn't yet strong enough to do. So like I say, if you practice tow hooking enough, you get better at seeing the opportunities to do it. Now, sometimes those opportunities might mean you get to break the intended sequence of a climb, you find a massive tow hook which makes the whole climb completely different and multiple grades easier. Nice when that happens. Good to be always having your tow hook vision on in case there's an opportunity like that. A lot of the time though, it might just mean you find a subtle tow hook which makes the hardest move on the climb half a grade easier, but that might make it half a grade easy enough that you can now do the whole climb. I think I'm good at a whole bunch of different things in climbing. I'm good at dyno stuff, I'm good at campusing. I actually rate my tow hook skills as pretty good. I was climbing with Aidan Roberts once, and he pointed out how weird it was when we were climbing on the board together that I would either solve a hard climb by doing some crazy paddle dyno campus thing, Or completely the other extreme, do a really technical, really hard, complicated toe hook maneuver. A really good example of how toe hooks often are like this secret weapon of mine is this blue boulder on the training board. I think this is about V11 or V12, and there's this really hard move early on where you're trying to move in from this kind of terrible right-hand pinch into a fairly good left-hand hold. The hard bit about it is keeping that right foot on. This is where having practiced toe hooks becomes this secret weapon of mine. As soon as I put the left toe underneath the foothold and clamp that hold underneath, the move works every time for me. It creates the opposition I need to pull hard on those handholds without going flying off the foothold to move. Now we'll look at it from underneath so you can see it a bit more clearly. Without the toe hook, just go flying straight off it. There's nothing that secures me into the wall. With the toe hook though, I'm immediately locked into that next position. It works beautifully, and it's worked every time I try it. So if toe hooks are so useful, why isn't everyone doing them the whole time? I think there's a few reasons why. The first one is that they're simply not as set as other moves. The opportunities where a toe hook is forced on a climb are rarer, so people just have less opportunity to learn it unless they're really trying to. And actually, to add to that, I'd say even when a climb is set where the toe hook is supposed to be forced, if you're not good at toe hooks already, you can probably break it and do it another way and end up not learning how to do the toe hook. A great example of this would be the orange V7 that we looked at earlier. Now, here I am pretending I don't really know how to toe hook. If I didn't know how to toe hook, the first thing I'd do is switch feet, and actually the move is not that hard that way. I was surprised how well it worked. Made me slightly doubt whether the toe hook was intentional or not, but I don't think they'd bother giving me such a massive left hand hold if the toe hook wasn't needed for that move. But I switched feet, it wasn't that hard to do the move anyway, and now I haven't learned how to do the toe hook. It's a perfectly reasonable option. Another great example would be the red V7 boulder we looked at earlier. Here I am again pretending to not be very good at toe hooks. In this instance, the alternative is quite a lot harder. The toe hook's not working, so my next choice is just launch for the crimp. It is hard, but I've now done the move and I haven't had to learn how to do the toe hook. So two really clear examples of if I don't have to learn it, I've got other options. I'll probably do those other options first if my intention wasn't to learn how to toe hook. I think the other reason that toe hooks become under-practiced for a lot of climbers is that they work quite counterintuitively. They're completely different to all of the other ways that we use our feet when we're climbing. As you can see me demonstrating here, when I do a drop knee, I move my hips towards the foothold. When I do a rock over, I move my hips towards the foothold. When I do a heel hook, I move my hips towards the foothold. As soon as I need to do a toe hook though, I need to move my hips away from the foothold as much as possible to create tension. And I think that level of unfamiliarity and how weird it feels to do that for the first time just puts people off a little bit. They assume they're just bad at it, it doesn't work for them, so they don't practice toe hooks and they just practice other techniques instead. So now that brings us to the question of how can we get better at toe hooks? I've got two main tips to focus on in terms of how to get them working well, and then I've got a drill that I'd like you to do. So let's go through those two main tips first. First one, and this goes back to the idea of toe hooks, I think, being quite counterintuitive and alien. I think even the name toe hook is really misleading. I think Chris Hampton at Power Company Climbing has said a similar thing. If they were called foot hooks, I think everyone would get on way better with them. The way the rubber is designed on my shoe is also pretty misleading. It makes me think I should toe hook with my toe. So you can see here, I'm trying to toe hook with my toe, and I need to have a strong ankle to maintain that amount of tension when the pressure is placed so far away from the lever of my ankle. I'm not strong enough to keep my foot in that position whilst leaning all the way into my toe. My foot just bends away from my ankle, and I can't keep the toe hook. By contrast, as soon as I put my whole foot behind there and I'm trying to put pressure where the laces of my shoe would be, I can maintain so much more pressure on that part of my foot that I can toe hook really, really effectively. So my first tip, get as much foot behind the hold as you possibly can. You're trying to toe hook as close to the ankle as you can. It's a much stronger part of your foot. Sometimes this might mean just put more foot behind it. Other times you need to be more intentional about the direction you place your foot. You can see on this yellow climb, if I place my foot perpendicular to the wall, the hold's not shaped in a way that I can get much foot behind it. If I turn my foot and I'm more parallel to the wall, now I can get a lot more of my foot there, not just my toes, and the toe hook works brilliantly. My second tip is that toe hooks work best when you put tension into them, as I mentioned earlier. Now, putting tension in can be done a bunch of different ways. I think it's good to be aware of those different methods and ideally pick the least strength-intensive ones. So starting from the least strength-intensive ones, find a position where you can balance and lean into the toe hook. So you can see in this example, depending on where I place my standing foot on the floor, either I fall towards the toe hook and the toe hook doesn't work at all, or I place it a little bit nearer, I can now lean my body away from it, and now I can just passively lean into that toe hook. It takes very little strength to maintain a toe hook in that position if I just balance my body the right way. My next preferred way of creating tension is to use an awareness of my flexibility, or lack of flexibility in my case, to put tension to that toe hook. I'm flexible in one direction, but I'm not very flexible in another, and for toe hooks I can use that to my advantage. So you can see here in this footage, if I point my right foot and my right knee away from that arete, I'm actually not flexible enough to get my foot where I want to for the toe hook. When I turn my hips towards it, now I can reach out and get the toe hook, and then I can turn my hips back away from it again to use that lack of flexibility to immediately put tension into the toe hook again. Another really useful way of putting tension into those toe hooks is to oppose that tension with your other foot. This is, I think, largely what we're talking about when we say bicycling a hold. So you can see in this example on the orange, without doing anything with my right foot, I just haven't quite got the angle or the pressure that I need on that toe hook foot to stay. When I brace my right foot against the wall and I'm almost like levering those 2 points against each other, now I can keep that foot. So sometimes that might mean clamping a toe hook behind the hold and putting your other foot on top. We saw that example of me on the blue earlier on in the video. Other times it might mean that I've got my toe hook underneath something and I'm pushing away on something further, but I can create tension between those points using both of my feet. Another really good way of creating tension is to not just passively hang off the toe hook if the balance isn't there for it. You might need to pull in and engage your core to get the correct angle on that toe hook. You can see on this black line, if I just hang off it, it feels terrible and I land on my butt. As soon as I pull up to my chest and tense into my core, now this toe hook works beautifully for me. A less common way of putting tension into toe hooks, but another really good one to know about if it comes up, sometimes dropping your knee and doing what looks like a drop knee, but pulling into that toe hook instead can work really well. You can see on this blue, I can't really get the distance I need from it. I can't move my foot elsewhere. If I twist in, now I can pull into that toe hook in the direction I want to. My last option for how to make a toe hook work is the most strength intensive, but interestingly, I think this is the first option most people go for, and it's why toe hooks feel so hard. If I can't create tension by balancing a certain way, if I can't turn my hips away from it, if I can't oppose it in any way, if I can't do some kind of drop knee toe hook, then the only option I'm left with is I actually just need to pull with my leg towards me, which is a really awkward way to apply strength. But when you come across a hard toe hook, that's the only option. So you just need to pull with your leg and it feels uncomfortable and you need to be strong. In this instance, on the green, I can't do any of the other options I like, so now I just need to pull really hard with my leg and my core and just hold that toe hook in by force. That's a hard toe hook. I don't like that option. That is the last option I'd go for. So I've put those roughly in order of priority of if you can do those first options I listed, they're slightly more passive, they take less energy, but I try to work through those before I eventually get onto oh crap, there's no other option. Now I just need to yank on it with my leg. But check all the other options first. Toe hooking, most of the time, doesn't feel that intense. So now that we've gone through a whole load of tips on how to make a toe hook work well, let's go through this drill I've got so that you can actually get practicing it and get really familiar with it until it becomes your secret weapon too. So my main advice is to intentionally and mindfully practice toe hooks. Now, by intentionally, I mean do a load of toe hooks. I like to make this really easy for myself by giving myself the ideal setup, and I do this with students as well. Look for jugs on a roughly vertical wall, ideally with some aretes either side or some really big macro holds either side of you, so you've got loads of opportunities to toe hook. And I set myself this simple rule that if I want to move my right hand, I need to toe hook with my right foot. If I want to move my left hand, I need to toe hook with my left foot. I've got a really good setup here. You can see I've got this perfect line of jugs, so it's physically easy. I can think about what I'm doing, and I'm sticking to this rule of left toe hook for left hand, right toe hook for right hand. Now, by intentionally practice toe hooks, I just mean do a load of toe hooks and you'll slowly get better at it. Maximum effective practice, though, if you mindfully practice toe hooks. And by that I mean, and you can see me doing it a little bit here, every toe hook I practice, I'm thinking a little bit about, oh, how does this one feel? If I change this, does it feel better? Does it feel worse? If I move into this position, do I get more from it? The more I think about how each toe hook feels and how it works and why it feels better or worse than others, then I get really good learning. So you can see I'm trying out several foot positions per toe hook. I'm using different varieties of the techniques we've talked about so far. I'm putting myself into different positions and just thinking as much as I can about how and why it works, whilst doing as many toe hooks as I possibly can. So a fairly simple drill with a clear setup and some clear rules to stick to, but the more you do it and the more you think about it, the better that practice becomes. The next thing I'd recommend practicing is simply being on hard climbs and looking for as many opportunities to toe hook as you can. Here I am on this V7. I don't know if there's supposed to be any toe hooks on this, but I'm finding as many as I possibly can. Sometimes they're actually quite useful. I think I find like 5 or 6 across the whole of this climb. There are some where I did them going like, oh, even spending the time looking for this toe hook wasn't worth it. I actually made the move harder. But in a lot of occasions, no, they're actually really helpful. And the more time I spend practicing looking for opportunities to do my toe hooks, the more I find them and the more I can do them and the more they come in useful. Oh, maybe this is the last toe hook. That's a pretty good one. Didn't really need it. I think I definitely don't need this last one, but this is a nice one. Look, ooh, comfy finish position. Looks great. So there you go, folks. Those are all of our tips about toe hooks. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave some likes. Please leave some comments about how you feel about toe hooks and whether or not you're going to practice these drills. Please practice the drills. You'll get good at toe hooks. It's very helpful. Subscribe to the channel. Please become a Catalyst member if you want loads more good tips and some session plans to get you practicing skills like this. And leave some love for Ink the Cat. Woo. Good work, Ink. Yeah. Oh, grumpy boy. No, he's not so bad.